I got a lot of free time on my hands right now, so recently I started cyberbullying my dad. My dad is 63 years old, he got a Facebook account, so I got a hold of his high school yearbook, found his friends that didn't have Facebook accounts, uploaded their pictures, created accounts, added my dad, started talking shit. We got my dad to drive 2 hours from his home to Fargo, North Dakota to meet a high school classmate named Mel that we were pretending to be. Yeah! I know what you think inside, that's called catfishing. Don't worry, I will get to the bully part. My dad gets in his truck, he drives 2 hours to Fargo, North Dakota. We follow behind him, giggling the entire way. He goes into the restaurant, he waits 2 hours for Mel. Mel doesn't show because we are Mel. We laugh through those 2 hours as well. He gets back in his truck. He drives 2 more hours back home. We are now at 6 hilarious total hours. We watch him walk in his house, open up his Facebook to open up a message from Mel that said, "Walked in, saw your face, you're still a bitch, took off." Internet's a young man's game, Bruce.
You're welcome.
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about your ghost tour, and I want you to answer them.
Do any of these fuckers
Do any
ever
of these
pop out of the
fuckers
wall?
ever drop out of the fucking ceiling and shoot like a big, huge cum load? That's all I want to know.
No, they don't.
I don't understand. It's like we're not on the same page here. is
I'm
what
not
saying
trying to
you.
make it anyone's worst day in the gym.
Did you not say this was the adult ghost tour?
Mitch,
That's right.
I won the blueberry muffin.
That's right. So I said horsecock, cum shot. I don't get it here. It's like we're on different wavelengths or something. I understand your mind is thrown off because I have the extremely complicated shirt on here. But what am I supposed to do when I walk by a store and I see a bunch of men wrestling and grappling and such things like this?
You
These
go in.
complicated shirts. You go in.
Yeah.
You go in.
Why did the
Chicken cross the road to get to the other side.
Why did the snowman get excited?
This has to be a snowball joke. It's too easy. What is it?
He heard the snowblower coming down the road. It's a fellatio joke. A fellatio snow joke.
Felice the snow.
We named the dog Indiana. All right. Is this part of it? What are we doing? Are we recording other stuff first, or is this part of the episode?
This is the stuff. This is the stuff. When people pull that moldy bread back, this is what's inside. And this is what they always expect. Trash. Another trash sandwich served up by us. So, ladies and gentlemen,
How was school?
I'm
Ray.
How was school? I only assume that our audience is male and female. Sorry. Welcome to episode
Maybe both.
41.
I think that sounds right.
No, I think we did 41. We
Could be 42.
We weren't an even number.
Hold on. Checking.
41 was the Book of Boba Fett ass, right?
I think you're right. Episode 40. View channel.
Because we're almost at 46, right? That's when we hit our stride.
Then we find our voice.
That's right.
Oh, you reposted some stuff. You. So
When?
I'm trying to. It's not in chronological order necessarily. Yes, 41 was the Book of Boba Fett.
41. Okay, so
This is episode 42,
ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard episode
the Jackie
42,
Robinson episode.
the Jackie Robinson episode. I don't know what that means. Hopefully, everyone is wearing number 42 today, which I'm sure you are, and it's probably pink. So welcome to the Two Critical Podcast, episode 42. Today's special guest, comedian, you know him, you love him, you've seen him in a lot of places. Cy Amundson. Rob? Tell us.
No,
What?
that's me.
Oh, fuck. I'm sorry. Rob?
Yeah.
That's Rob. We don't have him on yet, but he's coming on. So Rob, give us his backstory as best you can. Tell us where you've seen him, where you've heard him. He's very funny. Very funny.
So I discovered him probably 3 years ago. Typical when my wife and I go out, if the kids aren't with us, a lot of times while we're talking, we'll just put comedians on Pandora in the background, and his stuff kept coming up, just kept getting mixed in. And he had a couple, I mean, all of his jokes are funny, but he had a couple that I love. I mean, he's got a fantastic joke about catfishing his dad on Facebook that, it's just my cup of tea. So I found him to be very funny. I started watching YouTube videos of him, and then we started reaching out to him to try to get him on here almost a year ago.
Right.
He was one of the first comedians that I reached out to when we started the podcast.
In our experience, he may be the only comedian.
Well, and he got back to me pretty quickly saying that he would do it, but he was going through some health stuff. Well, apparently he's still been going through it. So I'll let him get into it when we get him on here, but he's got this autoimmune disorder that's been a tough fight for him, with the virus and everything else going on. So I don't think he's really been on the road doing stand-up in a year or two, which is a shame because I think he was really about to kind of make that big break. He does a podcast with Chad Daniels, who is another very funny comedian, called Middle of Somewhere. And so he's a Midwest guy.
Do that one?
Well, on Zoom.
Oh.
Damn it. He's a Midwest guy. He's near the Cincinnati area right now, I believe, but he's from the Minneapolis, Minnesota area. Really funny. Does some jokes about sports, some jokes about family members. Does a great joke about his buddy's kid got a rock thrown at him, and the father was proud of him for not retaliating, and Cy was just disgusted by this.
I love the whole bit about the bus trip.
Yeah, He's incredibly funny. I really hope when his health gets back on track, he can kind of continue what seemed like the trajectory of his career. Because I thought 2 years ago, I thought he was not like, and Bill Burr's a lot. That's a heavy hitter. But I thought he was on his way to being in, kind of like the Nate Bargatze area. I thought by now we would have seen maybe a Netflix or a Hulu special. Like that's how funny I think he is, and kind of where I thought his trajectory was heading.
Okay.
So he's still doing the podcast. Hopefully, like I said, when his health improves, he can get back on the road and keep going. Because I really thought 2-3 years ago, I thought he was one of those names that I'd remember. Like I knew him before he was big.
Right.
The fuck are you reading?
Oh, I just my mom sent this to me. I can't put this down.
Yeah, I bet you can't put it down. It's probably a handful.
It's really good.
Yeah.
A lot of good tips. A lot of cooking suggestions in here, which I never would have imagined.
Yeah.
But they are. It's good.
I bet you would have read it out loud, but it was a mouthful, huh?
I sent you 10. One for the car, one for work.
One for the John.
One
for the ladies' room.
Not for John. I said it to you.
Oh, okay.
Not John. John can get his own goddamn book. So what's going on? What's in the news? What's happening? Olympics are here.
Olympics are here. I think we'll do some Olympic stuff next week, right?
Yes.
We'll do some good Olympic coverage. I even considered, I do have a TV in my office. I was like, maybe I'll set up Zoom every now and then and do some broadcasting.
That would be fantastic.
Some announcer stuff of the Olympics. Maybe we can sync it up where you and I can do the commentary while we're watching it.
That would be great.
Yeah. So you got caught up yesterday or today on Peacemaker, which
all done.
Surprise, surprise to everyone that thinks I just hate DC. I fucking love Peacemaker. Now, it's not good.
No,
it's terrible, but it's terrible in all the good ways. Vigilante is Deadpool. I have no doubt in my
God,
mind.
yeah.
The director went to the guy playing Vigilante and he said, "What do you want me to do with this character?" And he goes, "Well, have you seen Deadpool?" And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "Do that."
Well,
And
every comic has their exact counterpart in the other universe. So, I mean, it's not that hard to imagine that they have the Deadpool like guy.
but he's great. And John Cena, God love him. He's going for it. I mean, he's
swinging
doing
for the fences. He's so good.
And I think it's a smart move by them. I mean, you've got a fucking sidekick who's an eagle. Like, you can't make this hyper realistic. It's got to be this far fetched.
Although they do, like,
they make it as practical as they can.
Yes,
yeah.
there's a very like serious grit to it. You know.
Well, I think that's because James Gunn's making it.
And I like when people talk about like the butterflies and stuff, and then like, you know, they're like, "Oh, what's his name? Oh, you can't pronounce it with a human tongue," and then they say the name, and the girl's like, "This is fucking ridiculous." Like, everyone is aware that what's happening is fucking ridiculous, which I think is very funny.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice twist when we found out that Myrn was a butterfly. I thought for sure he was just a bad guy.
Right.
So, see, I'm torn because when he had the butterfly back in his trailer, it really made me seem like they were going to find out that the bad guys aren't the bad guys, but they have to be, because they're inhabiting humans that are dead when they leave them. So they're killing humans to try and take over. But it's confusing to me because Myrn's a butterfly, but he's trying to kill all the butterflies.
Well, they don't want them. They know they're going to take over the planet. And that was, I don't think, part of their plan.
Yeah.
And now the other butterflies aren't really playing by the rules. They're going to take over people that are in power, and they're going to change policy and fuck with a lot of stuff.
I think we're going to disagree on this a little bit. Who's your favorite? Butterflies
are sexy.
No, they're people too. No. Who's your favorite character in the show?
Boy, I'm at my new crush is Hardcore.
Well, she's great, but Economist is my favorite.
Oh, he's hilarious.
He's my
killed the gorilla.
Diebeard.
Oh my God. When he killed the gorilla, it was insane.
I'm not joking. For almost a week, all I listened to was Hanoi Rocks after that episode. I'm not, I put it on Apple Music.
Is it 11th Street Kids? Is that what it is?
Yeah. I put it on Apple Music, just listen to Hanoi Rocks. And it's funny because I haven't heard of that band in a long time. But as I'm playing, I'm like, I remember this song. Oh, I remember this song. So James Gunn does a great job with music. Guardians of the Galaxy always has great music.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see, I think so we have 2 more episodes left, I believe.
Is it only 8? When did they release them?
I don't remember, but
it's either 8 or 6 at once, and then
it's every Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry, Thursday. Every Thursday. Boba
okay.
Fett's Wednesday, Peacemaker's Thursday.
Got it.
I'm curious. The next episode, the title of it was released. I forget what the title is, but it has dragon in the name. So I'm assuming whatever the conflict with his father is about to get resolved because he's the white dragon.
Yeah.
You
must be the red dragon.
I think.
You must be the red dragon, huh?
I think they're gonna wrap up the white dragon saga in the next episode, and I'm guessing that's gonna end somehow with him finding peace. And then he's going to have to take on the butterfly situation with the rest of the group. I'll bet you lunch right now, him and Hardcore bang.
It's going to happen.
I thought it was going to happen last episode when she told him her real name.
Yeah.
When she said was it Amelia?
Amelia.
Yeah.
But when he ever played Motley Crue on the piano, so great. And it was him.
Yeah.
They made a big deal out of it that John Cena learned to play the piano for that song.
I listen, it's the best thing DC's come out with since probably Man of Steel.
Holy shit. When he was at the table and he was going crazy, coming up with all the celebrity names of people that they could have framed.
It reminded me a little bit of the scene from Ted with Mark when they're naming the names.
Exactly.
But
like he got onto one name that sounded the same, and then he did like 3 names that sounded.
Because that's what you do. That's what you would do in real life. In real life, if you said to me, name actors, and I said Tom Hanks,
right,
I'm either going to say Colin Hanks or someone that begins with Tom next.
Yeah.
You go down the list.
Right.
No, I thought it was great. The show's really good.
So good.
I'm hopeful. Listen, the Batman comes out in like a month now. Actually, it's a month from yesterday.
Speaking of Batman, they took the piss out of Batman in the last episode. They went all over Batman, and
I love that they're finally referencing stuff too. Like when they were asking, like, "Do you know Wonder Woman? Have you ever met Wonder Woman?"
But they were talking about Superman.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was good. And when he went after that old man, he wanted to know about the supervillains or the
fucking the stuff with Vigilante and him with the tapping on the glass with the butterfly, and he keeps not asking yes or no questions. No. It's 1 for yes, 2 for no. All right, is your favorite color, or what's your favorite color?
Teal.
You can't do that. It's got to be yes or no questions. All right, fine. Is teal your favorite color?
Yeah.
There's a lot of rules. There's 2 rules. Yes or no questions. Don't be a fucking moron.
That guy is terrific, and I love that his brain is disconnected from
there's a couple of
any of those fucking signals.
What was the thing that he harps on things like almost? Do you remember that in Always Sunny when Mac drove the car into the wall?
Yeah.
For the rest of that episode, anytime they said anything, Mac would ask a question about but what are we gonna do about the wedding dress? Like Vigilante does that. Like he attaches himself to like the favorite color thing, and he can't get off of it.
Yeah.
And then like when they call his phone and he pretends like it's not him, he's like, Vigilante, I don't even know who that is. He grabs Peacemaker's phone, fucking throws it out the window. He's like, it was an untraceable phone. He's like, oh, that's my bad. So, and then we've had 2 great episodes of the Book of Boba Fett that even you can't deny. However, they're great because they're the Mandalorian.
Exactly. Yeah. Boba Fett was in 1 episode and he had 0 lines. I'm in. You know what? They shouldn't even have paid him for that episode. They should have put a fucking stand-in and put his fucking bucket on his head. Problem solved. How much money did I just save?
Am I correct that there's only 1 more episode of that show?
Mm-hmm. All Out War, 1 episode.
Which is great. Which is great.
Din Djarin. It's great.
Well, Din Djarin's the best part of the show. Well, him, Grogu, or Luke.
Hopefully Boba Fett keeps his helmet on during the big battle.
Let me say this real quick, and I've said it to you, and I've responded to some people on Twitter. I have been a Boba Fett defender. I like the show. I haven't thought it was amazing, but I've thought it's been good. Before I watched the last episode, I saw so many people like, this is the best Star Wars content we've ever seen.
Since when, though?
Fuck off.
Who are the people saying that, though?
These are people that I follow online.
The 2000s?
No, these are people that are like my age that have seen the original trilogy. Like the stuff with him running with Grogu in the backpack, I know you would point out like that's copying. I think that's nostalgia, not copying.
It is.
That's fan service.
It is.
And it's great. I liked it. I'm not making fun of it. I'm not criticizing it. I think it's great that they did that. Everyone, that saw Return of the Jedi wants to see that. It's a good episode of a show. It's not better than the other Star Wars stuff that we've seen. It's better than some of it.
It's not groundbreaking.
No, it's not Luke finding out that fucking Vader's his dad. Like, it's not Han and Carbonite. Come on.
If anything, from a production standpoint, it's embarrassing.
If you want to say it's the best thing we've seen since the original trilogy, I may not agree, but I think that Luke fighting the Dark Troopers in the finale of Mandalorian season 2 was better than this.
I agree.
We got to see Luke actually be a badass and not be a bitch like in The Last Jedi and Force Awakens and fucking Rise of Skywalker. What have we seen more, Boba Fett in this season or Luke in Force Awakens?
Yikes. I mean, the screen time, who knows?
The last 2 episodes, I think Luke had the same amount of screen time in Force Awakens.
He may have.
Boba wasn't in this last episode at all, correct?
He was at the very end when they're standing around the table, didn't have any dialogue.
No lines. Okay.
1 minute screen time. It's been, someone clocked it online.
It's like Lenny Clark since he got clean. No lines.
Very good. Well done.
Thank you. Very funny.
11,000 views.
The Lenny Clark video?
Last time I checked. 11,
I got to look into the Antonio thing.
Yes,
I could
please.
I could do some research.
Research.
What do you got, a Bloody Mary?
Yeah.
God help you.
In baby Jesus.
I meant God
Baby
love
Jesus.
you. I meant God love you, not even help you. But he can help you too.
She does. See what I did? From a production standpoint, the episode was embarrassing because they got a guy that's a YouTuber to do the deep fake and not ILM. It was just a guy on YouTube that did the deep fake, and ILM found out about it because, like everybody else, they saw the side-by-side comparison video that he did, and they actually went out and hired this person. Now, this is a dream.
That's
This is a
amazing.
dream.
Yeah.
But you have the people who are the ones that get the scientific Oscars to make this technology, and they can't make it look good. That shows you where they're at. It's fucking embarrassing.
I mean, the deepfake guy is incredible.
Yes, he is.
If he's listening, which
What's he
I'm
working
pretty
for,
sure
merch?
if he's listening, which I'm pretty sure he is, we got some
Oh.
shirts coming your way if you want to do some work for us.
Look at this one. Look at this one. You see it? Team Bronco.
Oh, when'd you get that?
It came yesterday.
So did I. Let me see that ass. Not even the ass I'm interested in. It's the anus.
The anus.
5 years ago, I could have knocked one out from here right down your throat. My choice.
No, I got Meg saying that now. It's so great. Okay, Cy Amundson is in the waiting room. Are we ready?
Get him in here.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Two Critical Podcast, episode 41. I am fucking
42.
pumped. It's
42.
42?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I got to retcon the whole thing. Strike that, reverse it. Ladies and gentlemen, Two Critical Podcast, episode 42, Quad Deuce. Here we go with comedian Cy Amundson. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Two Critical Podcast, episode 42. Today's guest is a very funny gentleman. His name is Cy Amundson. Cy, am I saying the last name properly?
In theory, yeah. It's,
no, either I do or my last name's Pimentel, and people destroy it all the time. So how do you pronounce your last name?
So my grandma, it's crazy. My grandma had two sons.
Okay.
And one family goes by Amundson, and
boy.
one family goes by Amundson.
It's a goddamn turf war.
I would prefer.
Is that two tables at Thanksgiving?
It's very wild. I would prefer Amundson, but early on in my career, people started saying Amundson. And so once that's gone on for 16 years, you can't really reverse it. So let's go with Amundson.
Amundson. So that's the stage name. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Spelled the same, looks the same. It's exactly the same stage name.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cy Amundson, welcome to the show. How are you, Cy?
I'm doing good. They had an ice. I live in Cincinnati, and I'm originally from Minnesota, and they had a thing that they call an ice storm down here.
Yep.
And everybody was freaking out. They're like, I tried to stop at Kroger on my way home from physical therapy, and
Local reference.
Well, I mean, Kroger's are in all the places.
Right.
Aren't Kroger's in most of the places?
No.
Not here.
No. Where exactly are you guys?
Massachusetts.
New Hampshire
I'm in
and
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Rob's in New Hampshire.
Yeah, well, Kroger is way too diverse of a name to exist up there. So it's the Kroger.
We have Sullivan's. You throw a rock and hit a Sullivan's.
That sounds about right.
O'Brien's.
Yeah, that sounds. Oh, we have O'Malley's grocery store, and
we know him.
I'm not gonna do the impression because I'm horrible.
Fitzpatrick's, Fitzmichael's. Yeah, we got them all. Gallagher's. We love Gallagher.
Yes. Sounds like a lot of very specific grocery stores. So, but man, these people were going banana. You'd have thought somebody announced the apocalypse. I was like, guys, it's 2 days. An ice storm. Somebody told me 2 days. I just was there for raspberries and shit. I didn't even necessarily need them. And so, but I guess they don't have, where you guys are at and where I'm originally from, they have trucks that lay down salt and clean up streets.
Yeah.
When it ices here, the city motto is fuck it for a few days. Everybody goes inside
Let
and
it sit.
fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I lived through that. We're on the other side of the ice storm now, and really embracing life here in Cincinnati.
Ice storm 2022. We had
So
snow. We had Snowzilla up here.
That sounds horrible.
Snowzilla dumped about 2 feet on us last week. So, and
Barf.
everybody pissed their pants up here too.
I'm at the point where we've been in Cincinnati not quite a year now. This is our first winter, and in December and January, it's not unusual for it to hit 40 degrees, and that feels kind of cold. But then you remember when you're home, I've got friends sending me screenshots of -20, and you're like, this place is paradise, and I love it here.
Because you're originally from Minnesota, right?
Yep. And it's there was a week where everybody was sending me screenshots, literally hit -20, -30. It was just bananas. And down here, one of those days it was almost 50 degrees.
Did you play hockey, Si, growing up?
Should we talk about weather? Is there anything dumber and shittier to talk about? One time when I was
so glad you brought that up.
it rained so hard that the rain hit the window and it sounded like bullets. Like, what the fuck am I even talking about?
Yeah,
right now?
I actually stop my wife in the middle of talking to her or my neighbors because we stand at the fence and everyone talks about their fucking grass. And halfway through the conversation, I realize I don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad we're sitting here talking about our grass. I could fucking care less about it. I say it out loud and it snaps people out of a trance. And then they start to talk about real things.
Anything important? Yeah. Is there anybody less cool than a guy who's proud of his lawn? Is that
Fucking
the least
horrible.
cool guy in the whole world?
Horrible.
Yeah, I will agree. I was gonna say people that talk about all the food that they smoke in their smokers and cooking, but I sometimes get to eat that brisket.
Yeah, you get to eat the food.
I don't get to
that's the cool
enjoy.
one.
I don't get to
They
enjoy
do
someone
behind his
else's
back.
lawn.
You do behind his back.
So,
Dude,
good.
Yeah, I can nod along to the smell of brisket, but there's no end game for me with your yard. There's nothing unless your yard grows hands and jerk. Like there's nothing cool about your yard.
Right.
0.0. And I'm also, fellas, I am such a little cuck. I am a big environmental guy. I love the environment.
Okay.
I was raised by a biology professor and an environmentalist.
Okay, DiCaprio.
I'm better than you two is what I'm trying to tell you. This is a long way to say I'm a better person. No, I just like these people who water their lawn, and it's the least. Last year, our lawn back in Minnesota before we moved down here looked like a place a sad dog would go to, just like, this is where I die, like a lawn desert. But who gives a shit? Who gives a shit how green your lawn is? We're in a water crisis.
People shouldn't even have grass. I have neighbors around the city that have artificial grass on their front lawns. They have them fenced off, the front lawns, and they've made little little putting greens on the front of their lawn. And every single time we walk by, no matter what time of year it is, it looks fucking perfect. It looks exactly the same and it's perfect. And I envy those
Sounds like pussy shit to me, brother. No, that's not me. I agree. I would love some fake grass.
So
grass.
We actually have a friend who went to college for 4 years, runs his own successful business. He's a landscape architect. He designs like libraries and like monuments, and he did like the 9/11 memorial in Connecticut, like major, huge stuff. His mother-in-law is under the impression that he cleans gutters.
Well, because he does landscaping, yeah. That's what I think too. You guys explained all that, and I'm like, cool, he cuts lawns with a bunch of 14-year-olds. Good for him.
So his mother-in-law will literally call him up and ask him for, like, he's like, oh, you guys are coming over Saturday? Could you do me a favor and take a look at the gutters? And he's like, why? And so we have actually put together video promos. We came up with a company called Chris's Clippers.
This episode of the Too Critical Podcast is brought to you by Chris's Clippers. Chris's Clippers, when you absolutely positively have to have someone cut your hedges who has a 4-year college degree. Chris's Clippers. Call us today. If not, go fuck yourself.
Almost every single episode, we drop in a Chris's Clippers promo, and he recently found out about it a couple weeks ago, and he nearly pissed himself.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, we've been looking, we've been renting down here and we're looking to buy a little condo. And we saw one that we really like, and it has a weird pavers situation. Like, I think I need somebody to dig up the paver and put the paver back down. So if your guy could give me a quote on that.
Oh, sure. I'd be more than happy to
that
hook you up with him.
That'd be good. And I don't know if he cleans siding, because the siding is a little
He does it
little
all.
rough. He sounds like I love that. He's like a real landscape architect. But I know a lot of guys who are like, I'm a landscape architect. You're like, no, you didn't go to college and you got a job in your hometown mowing lawns for Terry. And then Terry bought a lake house and managed to not get divorced. So he kept all his shit so he could retire. And now you took over Terry's business. You're not, let's go easy with the word architect here. That's,
If you have a trailer on your truck that has a wooden fold down ramp for your 2 lawnmowers, yeah, you're not a landscape architect.
I thought you were going to break into like a Jeff Foxworthy, like you might be a landscaper type of.
I would never dare. I would never.
You got 2 John Deeres and a weed whacker. You might be a landscaper. So Cy, you'll appreciate this. So one of my favorite bits of yours, I don't ever ask comedians when we talk to them if any of their stories are true or not. Cause I get it. You're writing jokes, doing things. I really fucking hope you actually catfished your dad with the Facebook thing when he went to the restaurant.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Please tell me that's true. Okay. So we're big fans of catfishing, friends and family. So the same guy he was talking about, Chris, I reached out to him at one point and said that his mother-in-law referred me. And he was like, oh, okay, that's great. And I'm like, yeah, I need a fire pit built. Now he builds fire pits for people, but they're like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 fire pits. Like these are exotic, like grills built in, everything. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, what do you have in mind? So I sent him a picture of like a little fucking metal ring from Home Depot. And I was like, and while you're here, if it's not too much trouble, we can get the gutters cleaned out. And he realized at that point, he's like, oh, fuck, did Tom do this? Is this Tom? But the
huge part of that story is he had built an outdoor fire pit that was the size of a shed, a stone outdoor fireplace with columns and pillars. It was like a $60,000 job for his in-laws. And after they installed it, she didn't like it. They came back with a crew and they demoed the whole fucking thing. My friend
Who
Chris,
has money like that. That is
these
wild.
people. My friend Chris works with a stonemason. The guy's like 68 years old. Everything's by hand. It's an art form to him. He cried. He had to leave. I'm not kidding. But that's how fucked up this is.
I mean, that is worth the 60 grand. I get to see an old man cry. Are you kidding me?
An old Italian man.
And then the other one, we have a woman that we've had on the podcast, and she's done some sketches and she's acted in some stuff that Tom's directed. And there was a group text at one point in time. So I took her number off of that and I sent her a text innocently, just sending her a text. And when she replied, "Who is this?" I went, "Oh God, opportunity." So the other person that it could have been is Luke, who's a friend of Tom's and mine. And I'm like, maybe she doesn't have his phone number saved. So I said, "It's Luke." And she went, "Luke, I finally have your number." So for a calendar year,
no bullshit.
I catfished her. And what we did is it's similar to, if you're a fan of The Office, when Jim does the Pavlov's dog thing with Dwight with every time the computer starts up, he gives him a mint. I only text her when there was poor weather outside. So every time it rained or snowed or was cloudy, I was texting her as Luke.
How about this weather, right?
To the point where one day Tom and I are talking and it's raining. And I get a text from her and I go, "Oh my fucking God." She texts me now. How about this weather? So after about a year, we were at this big comic convention in Connecticut and we had her on live while we're there. And we told her that it was me the whole time. And she was like, "What the fuck?"
It was
so this
so great.
That's some commitment with a 1-year catfishing of a friend. I think that's it was so much more fun for me and Tom than anyone else. I mean, it's funny to anybody, but
but it's fun to live it.
Yeah.
My nephew, so I've got a big weird family. So I have a couple of adult nephews. And so one of them, my nephew Ethan, when he was in high school, he was on a mission trip in New Orleans or something. So this is like a decade or more ago.
It's called Bourbon Street. A lot of 18-year-olds do it.
Right.
Sure. And
Rumspringer.
he and this group of boys,
Go on.
teenage boys, are all out at a restaurant. And this waiter comes up to him and he's trying to like be cool in front of children, which is a weird thing to do. And he starts talking about how one of his cousins is in the NFL. And they're like, yeah, right, man. He goes, he is. And I know, and his friend is really good friends with me. I'm really good friends with these dudes. And they just like kept giving him shit like, bullshit. No, you're not. The guy goes and he brings, and the insanity of this story is so multi-leveled because he goes and he brings back a newspaper of the Super Bowl, right? And like a front page, somebody won the Super Bowl, and it has these two players and their cell phone numbers on there, which means he's not their cousin because they
writes
probably,
that down?
Yeah, there's something went on where these guys became friendly and they gave him their numbers, but he shows him this and he's like, look, see, I know them. And then the guy quickly notices, he goes, oh shit. And he notices the phone numbers are on there and he closes it back up.
Tell me your nephew got the number.
Just wait. So they go walking down the street and these kids are all ripping on this waiter. And one of them out loud goes, it just too bad he held that newspaper because it was like just open, oh shit, closed, hardly any time at all. One of the kids goes, it's too bad he didn't hold that open longer. We could have got the numbers. And then just one kid in back is like 618-315-4747, like photographic memory kid has them. My nephew takes the phone numbers, pretends to be a like depth player, not a star, like a backup linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings, and starts texting these guys, develops a relationship with them, texts them all year long after games when things happen. Like they're sending each other like, hey, Merry Christmas, bro. Good on you for you and your family. Like stuff like that for over a year. And there's no fun end or reveal to it. He just stopped doing it because I think that the guy that he was pretending to be like fell out of the league or something.
Oh,
but
my fucking God.
He just pretended to be an NFL player. And the other wild thing is these two NFL players, when they got this random that must be a weird fraternity of humans where you're just like, oh yeah, backup linebacker for the Vikings is texting me. That's cool. I'll never see him face to face, but I will text him from now on. It was wild.
Before they played the Vikings, your nephew was probably like texting him like, hey, on the field, it's all business. So I'm not really going to talk to you much about the fact that we text. Like, let's ignore that.
I would text him during the game to throw him off.
Nice catch. Good tackle. So
they never played each other, but that was the opportunity. He got, like I said, he dropped out of the league, but that would have been the moment, right? Where you're like, hey, just a heads up. I'm gonna fuck your shit on Sunday. I know we've been friends, but fuck you. Hey, fuck your wife. Fuck you. You just go like wild on him. He's like, what do you do? We wish each other Merry Christmas. What are you talking about? He's like, a brawl broke out between the Vikings and the Steelers on Sunday. No one knows the cause. Like,
a suspicious package was found outside the locker room.
Two third-string linebackers sprinted off the sideline during a kickoff and had a duel. So I know you're a sports guy from your comedy and from some of the stuff you've done. Pretty cool when you got to take over ESPN Snapchat for a little while. Yeah. You got to be rooting for the Bengals, I'm assuming, just being near Cincinnati. Or are you rooting for the Rams here?
Oh, who gives a fuck? I don't know.
So for me, and I don't
back to you, Rob.
Clearly, I'm a Patriots fan. No one gives a shit. We're spoiled, Ron. Yeah. Once my team is out of it, unless you're a team I hate, I root for the team that hasn't won before or in a long time. Sure. So I'm rooting I like Burrow at LSU. I was always a fan of his there. I'm rooting for the Bengals. I don't really give a shit about the Super Bowl though. In terms of like hate, I think it's a great game. Yeah. I'm not shitting on either team. None of that.
I mean, Sean McVay reminds me of the least cool youth pastor I've ever seen in my life.
I'm so glad you said that.
Dude,
he also talks.
Yeah, exactly like one.
But he talks like he has 2 minutes to get in 3,000 words, and he's worried he's not going to get it in time. And
Because he's trying to make everybody happy.
But I'm a fast talker too. So like, I understand some of that is just genetic. Sometimes even on the podcast, when I re-listen to it, I'm like, slow the fuck down. What are you in a rush for? So I'm not necessarily shitting on him for that, but he talks at a rapid speed. And maybe it's because he's such a smart offensive mind. That's just how quick his mind's going.
I think it's because he's not cool, I think is the reason.
Yes.
If he showed
But he's
up
got his
to a
hair
Zoom-
spiked. He's got to be cool.
Fuck off.
Dude, there's no, like, if that guy showed up to a press conference on a four-wheeler, you'd be like, yeah, that tracks. He's the least cool dude. I mean, he's a great coach, but he's
Well, you're getting his
least
offensive
cool
coordinator
dude.
for the Vikings head coach. So
Yep, we entered the world of 35-year-old white offensive coordinator guy. So
former
fingers
New England
crossed.
Patriots draft pick. Got that going for you,
Congratulations.
which is nice.
Can I tell you something about Joe Burrow? I am going to root for the Bengals because I have
Sure.
a lot of friends who are Bengals fans.
Makes sense.
He's texting them during the game.
Joe Burrow,
It's a callback.
I remember, I was there. I mean, you guys should just be lucky I didn't walk off this show after Rob trampled my fucking youth pastor joke. I mean, that's a path we should have walked down. And he's like, no. I understand the clever way you described him. Let me say this 3,000 words, 2 minutes thing.
That's actually not what I thought you were going to complain about when I went to talk about the fact that your nephew got the phone number.
Mhm.
As you were telling the joke, I went, you fucking idiot. Just shut the fuck up and let the funny person tell the funny stories and just sit there and be happy that he's on your podcast. I was actually
I say
genuinely mad at
keep
myself.
jumping. Yeah, just keep jumping in. See if we can make this your shortest episode ever. Guys, I know here's something interesting for you because you guys both obviously love comedy and you both love sports. So is there, and now I love sports, but before going to ESPN, I had never been professionally connected to sports. So stand-up is this weird world where you work really hard and you build your audience. And if people don't like you, they normally don't come see you. And it's viewed very differently. And sports, people take themselves so seriously. So I just had to get used to, like, if you work in sports, especially if you do any sort of humor in sports, you just have to accept like 80% of people are going to think you're a fucking asshat, right? And they're going to send you mean shit all the time. But I think the most damning, like, example of the difference between sports culture and art culture is Joe Burrow. Because this motherfucker is, 24, 25 years old, top of the world. Everybody calls him Joe Shiesty. He fucking shows up in an iced out bling with a fucking fur coat and his hair slicked back and sunglasses. And people ask him a question like, are those diamonds real? He's like, if I make this much money, they would, like, this just complete. Can you imagine if a stand-up comedian showed up to an open mic with his haircut? Everybody'd be like, this cocky fucking asshole. In stand-up, is there anything less interesting than swagger? In the world of art, you're like, please, it's just amazing to see how swagger is received differently in these two communities.
I'm honestly surprised
now I've scared Rob into not.
No, you
speaking.
didn't. Genuinely, you know what? Honestly, okay. Can we get real for a second? We'll get real.
No.
We've had a few comedians on here,
Bummer.
all
Sure.
of which I recommended and got on here.
Okay.
None of the episodes I would say were great. They weren't bad, but you're probably my favorite comedian we've gotten on so far. And I'm
just
very
gonna
upset with.
torch you.
I don't blame you. No, I've earned
your
it.
shit.
I've
Burn
earned
it to the fucking ground.
Tom, all the nice stuff I said about him before we got on, just fucking delete it. Edit that out. So no, genuinely, all right, genuinely. And we'll get back to being slapdick in a second. I discovered you probably 3 or 4 years ago. And
Okay.
I understand what you're going through in your personal life. You haven't been traveling as much, all that stuff. Can't do shows on the road right now.
Sure.
I really thought by 2022, I'd be seeing you with a Netflix special, with a Hulu special. I thought you were ascending to that. Like, we were going to see Cy Edmondson as, I said I used the name Bill Burr earlier. That's a little excessive. That's obviously
It's a
very,
lot excessive, but thank
It
you.
is.
But that's very
No,
excessive.
but
he's a huge Star Wars fan. I'm pulling for him. Please replace anyone on Boba Fett. Sai,
Yeah.
I'm with you. Team
So
Sai.
it's funny because all of the other episodes we had comedians come on that I was a fan of, and I was a little let down by how they were on the show in terms of like they weren't being as witty and funny as I expected, which I get. Sometimes comedians, it's an act on stage, it's not their persona off stage. You're everything I fucking wanted, and I have stepped on 2 jokes now and done what I exactly didn't want to do. So this is actually, it's going swimmingly so far for me.
Yeah, Tom, let's just throw this one in the trash. You know,
I'm
maybe
having a
take
blast.
I get
I'll
it.
hit
I
delete.
get it.
Take a
I get
couple
it.
months. We'll give it another try. I love how you.
Let's put a pin in it.
He gave my favorite sort of compliment too, which is like, so what he was referencing for those who don't know is I got stuck with an autoimmune disease that took me out of my career, basically my performing career. And you just said that was a very, very nice thing that you said. And I really appreciate it. And it also came with a level of like acknowledgement of bummer reality. So my grandma died in 2017. If you guys want to break that down next after this, or if there's anything else that you might, if there's anything hard that you want to talk about, that would be really great. Hey, I really thought you were going to be all over Netflix by 2022.
I still think you could be. I'm hoping.
No.
I'm fingers crossed. I'm not a religious person, but if I was, I'd pray for you. I think your stand up is great. You're gonna rip me in a second, and that's fine.
I'm not. I'm gonna go be a human being. I'll tell you, it is a really interesting. It's really, really interesting to spend your life. I was really lucky. I got great advice, and I have great kind of role models or mentors or people who have helped me both in the comedy profession and in regular life to make sure that I always looked at, not always, it took me a while to figure it out by way of those people helping me, but looked at kind of our career and our profession in the right light so it doesn't kill you. Because I think when stuff like, whether it's movies, TV, poetry, music, comedy, any of it, it's not only is it your job, but it's also like your dream and your passion. And when those things are tied so closely together, when somebody's job's going shitty, they go home and they get into their hobbies and their passions and their dream and shit like that. But when you're in the art world and that stuff's going poorly, it's hard for your life not to be going poorly. So I'm really fortunate that people kind of stepped in and helped me walk that path correctly in terms of balance. But it's fucking wild to work your entire life. So the full story behind my health stuff is, started stand-up when I was 21, been doing it almost a decade. When I finally, I'd been on Conan and we sold a TV show that MTV saw, and they were like, hey, we're going to actually set this on fire instead of by the season. We're going to set it on fire. And then, did a couple other little Comedy Central things. And then I got the half hour and got cast in a pilot. And that's like the moment where you feel like all this hard work is going to really pay off. And, and then my back was just so bad that I had to pull out of the pilot and move home. And at that point, we just thought it was back issues. So I'm doing all this physical therapy. It took me like a year to get better. And still I wasn't back to normal, but a year to start getting better. And that's when I started some dumbass sports podcast, and somehow that got to ESPN and they brought me out to do Sports Center. So just as I was getting healthy, I got the Sports Center thing, and then the Sports Center thing blew up. And so then the career, like the new album came out and that was doing well. And it was kind of like, okay, second chance, you're back into this career. The touring's going to pick up all this stuff. And then bam, the disease just took over. And a couple years after that is when we got the diagnosis. But after 2 years at ESPN, it took me out of there. So it's kind of a wild process to go through to see everything you've worked for and everything you've put your hopes and dreams into, to make peace with, at the very least, it not being what you wanted it to be, and possibly for it to being over. And I'm kind of dealing with that a little bit right now, because during the pandemic, everything was shut down. So like no comedian was performing and nobody was creating in that way. and now they are again. And I'm hopeful with meds and PT and stuff, I can get back out there, but it's truly an interesting path to walk to, because obviously I'm doing the podcast and I'm doing things I really like and I'm proud of, but it's different. It's weird to kind of have to be okay with not being a part of things that were such a huge part of your identity.
So you said the one word that is my number one, the most important thing to me when I talk to actors or actresses or writers or anybody, because it's the same reason I do everything that I do. And you said passion. So
Sure.
out of all the comics that we've had on here, and I've been pretty hard on these guys because I have this notion of how I think other people are. So if you're a comic, in my mind, that is supposed to be the one thing that drives you your whole entire life. That is your passion. That's your dream. Okay.
Sure.
Same way my passion is filmmaking. Okay. That's
Sure.
what drives me. I know the late nights and spending every last dollar that you have and the sacrifice that you have to make. When you surround yourself with other people and you ask them, what's the most important thing to you? Why are you doing this? And they reply back, passion. You're in good company. All the other comics that we had on, when I talked to them, they didn't exude that whatsoever. It was almost like it was like a part-time job. And I don't understand that mentality. So, yeah, I mean, to have that whole part of your whole being taken away, that's demoralizing. Do you think the upside of, I mean, good things came out of the pandemic. We have seen the technology change. It dragged so many
Sure.
people into the 21st century. All these dickheads that didn't know how to use computers and use Zooms and microphones and lighting. Now they all have to fucking do it. They all have to be aware of it. And now everybody, almost every show, they're running every news program, you name it. Everything's done remote.
Yep.
Everything's done via Zoom. Do you think that there are new possibilities for you where you'll be able to still do stuff from like right where you are and get back into and dabble into some stuff?
Yeah, I mean, before I remind me, because I want to answer that, but I've got
Okay.
an interesting, not pushback on what you said, because I agree with you, but
Okay.
here's what I've really learned, and I learned from other people and just kind of spent so much time on in my life. Because so when I first started stand up, my goal was, I'm gonna, whatever you do, I'm gonna do it more. I'm gonna be better than you. I come from that background where it was, I'm gonna record every set. I'm gonna watch every set. I'm gonna write more. I'm gonna be, and I had these like, the comics I hung out with were above me and they were professionals.
Yep.
And I got to watch how they did stuff. So it was just outwork people, be so good that, anybody who sees you goes, oh, he should have been that one, and that one should have been like, he should have been the middle when you're an MC. So I was really prolific. It was all day, fuck it, in your mind, telling people like, oh, what do you think of this joke? I'm writing jokes, doing this. And then I started having a hard time with that. Like I've dealt with some mental health stuff in my life. And, there's this moment I was hanging out with my dad up north, and they were teachers. And in the summertime, they ran a resort. And so on the property, my dad's, one of his childhood best friends had like a trailer on the property, and his kids, who are my best friends, would come and spend time up there in the summertime. So it's like some big gross family compound, right? And so my dad and I are sitting on the deck. One of my best friends is down in the water with his kids. And I'm like telling my dad some dumbass joke. Like, oh, what do you think of this? And what if I did it like this and this? And my dad just kind of, who's so supportive. My dad is so supportive. But he goes, look at your friend down there. He goes, and he runs a hardwood flooring company, is what he does. He goes, your friend he runs a hardwood flooring company. He cares about it. He fucking loves it. He's really proud of it. He works really, really, really hard. But when he has bad days at work, he goes home and he loves softball and action movies and his kids. and all these, he's so many more things than that. So when he heads home, he can deal with that bad day and still have the ability to continue on in that profession, caring in that way, because a bad day isn't all encompassing. A bad stretch of time isn't all encompassing because you have other parts of your life. He goes, the people I've met that you are around in your field, they are so tightly tied to what they do as an identity and as a dream. When they have a bad day, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to escape. And that's why you meet so many cynical now that's what he said. And now I'm going off that and saying I think that's why you meet so many cynical artists and so many people who are so wildly unhappy and so many people who are so focused on what the guy next to me is getting and what this girl next to me is getting. And I think that's natural, and it's a competition, and I feel it all the time, but that moment where I decided to take a step back from the prolific nature, like the write all day, write every day, perform, beat everybody, into this new thing where work your ass off, write as much or more than anybody else. Like, take your stage time seriously, but have a life that is more important than that in certain ways. And I got to tell you, what that did for me is it changed the entire way my brain approached my profession. And it became this thing where I might not have been writing as much, but I was writing better because I was focusing on things and experiencing things, and it defined who I was. God, this sounds so corny to say, but it defined more who I was as a person and what I actually cared about. And I found it easier to write the sort of shit I wanted to write. And so that was one of two really defining moments that took me from the comedian that I was in my early 20s through my first album and past it to the guy I started to become before I got sick, that I was a lot more proud of. So I agree with you on passion, and when you find out why people do stuff, but I'm also just this huge proponent. Anytime a young comic asks about comedy, I'm like, have a fucking life. When you go on the road, see what's in that city and go to it. Go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, go out to lunch, talk to a few people, because having a personality and a life outside of your art informs, and I know stand-up people fucking poo-poo at art, but music, whatever your art form is, if you want that properly informed, you have to have a life outside. And I also just have my whole life I've hated the depressed, miserable, awful artist trope. Like, I think that is one that exists. I think there is creation and beauty and pain and in struggle. And I've gone through my struggles and turned some of those things into beautiful, you like the albums, Rob, the El Camino Therapist, that bit, like I've walked that path, but I do also believe there's a world where you can be an insanely good creator and a happy person who has meaningful shit in your life. I don't know why I needed to launch into that 2-hour TED talk, but
listen, this is probably the most interesting thing I've heard anyone say in our 42 episodes. I was
and then Cy chimed in. I agree with you.
And yeah,
absolutely, couldn't agree more, Tom.
We
then
obviously
spoke for a week.
No, we keep.
Here's the thing. That was really Sean McVay-esque. That's a callback, everybody.
That's, and you saying it's a callback is a callback, and
hey
now
guys,
I'm explaining jokes.
Do I have
again.
enough mousse in my hair?
Come on, Rob.
I did it on purpose that time. Fuck, Jesus.
Okay. The number one reason why he is a douchebag is because his first year they had to have a guy that they hired to keep him off the field. Do you remember that?
Yes, yeah. I absolutely remember it. The Sean Wrangler.
You're a cunt. You're a cunt. And now he has a guy that stands behind him that has like blonde frosted tips that just chews gum with like his arms folded the whole fucking time. He's the worst. He's the fucking worst.
He's a weird human man. Correct.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go. You talk.
I hate him. Full stop. Go ahead, Rob.
So obviously, I know you're big into sports. Obviously, with the pandemic and everything else that's going on, whether you have health issues or not, the last year and a half, 2 years has been a little bit different. What have you been getting into shows, movies? What are your like personal interests? Like, you like a Marvel guy? Do you watch, older shows like you binging Seinfeld on Netflix? What do you watch?
No, so it's weird. I can't, I have no interest in comic books and comic book movies, and I get why people do. I'm not, my rule in life is I'm not going to make fun of anything that anybody else, like the escapes, art, music, TV. I never make fun of anything anyone does until they prove to me they're an asshole. And then when I find out that person's an asshole,
That's your ammunition.
whatever you like, I'm gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna cut down your entire personality and the things you love to your face because you're the worst. But so no, I have no issue with comic book movies, but to me it just doesn't. I loved The Dark Knight just because that was a great film, but I the over the pandemic and throughout like getting sicker, I had to move to a more positive, like fun vibe of shows because I think when you're struggling in life, some people dig into that hole and they're like, I want to watch somebody bleed to death on TV. And other people are like, hey, I want to not feel the shittiest I've ever felt while watching TV. So I watched like a lot of positive, fun, silly shit. But I made the choice to get into Handmaid's Tale right at the beginning of the pandemic. But I had to do the thing where I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch an episode of Handmaid's Tale. And I'm gonna watch like probably 3 episodes of Park and Rec or some shit just to keep myself as positive. Like, you're like, I can't watch Handmaid's Tale and then just fall asleep. That's what
No.
am I, a psychopath?
Yeah, it's a balance.
It's a balance. So
Right.
I don't know. I'm all over the place. I'm watching right now. Now that I'm doing a little better, I've kind of got a wider array of stuff. I'm watching Station 11. Have you guys seen Station 11
No.
on HBO Max?
No.
It was a book. It's a terrible choice for right now because it's about a flu pandemic that, like, book from 2014. They turned into a film, or into a series. But it's wild. It's really, really, really good. I have to tell you, the reason I like to watch happy shit when I'm going through something is when I was younger, I got broken up with this girl I was like really into, right? And she broke up with me and I was just real upset. And I remember going home and I watched the movie Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds and Amy Smart.
Yep.
And then forever, I couldn't watch that movie because I was like, oh, I fucking ruined this. Every time I'd see it, even Ryan Reynolds, I'd be like, this motherfucker, he cost me Kelsey, like that sort of shit. And so the next time I got broken up with, that really hurt me. That was in the back of my mind. I was like, you know what? I have to make sure whatever positive, light programming I watch right now doesn't get fucking ruined for me forever. So choose something no one would ever care about. So I'm real sad, broken up with, and I decide to watch Evan Almighty.
Oh my God.
So you were that one viewer.
The sequel to the Steve
Yep.
Carell sequel to Bruce Almighty. And the other thing I was doing, I was like basically living on my couch. And so I would sit on my couch and I had a blanket over my legs. So my legs were always really hot. So I didn't have pants on most of the time.
Go on.
But for some reason, I decided to, I had multiple hooded sweatshirts on because I think I just was feeling cold emotionally. So I just like, I didn't have a big, thick hoodie. So I had multiple zip ups. So I was wearing like 2 or 3 hooded sweatshirts. And my buddy, my best friend, who I've known, he's been my brother's best friend since little kids. And he's the one who went on to write the TV show and sell that with me and stuff. He's been my creative partner forever. So he comes over to check on me because I don't know if I hadn't been answering, or he comes up to the cities to check on me. He walks in, I'm sitting in there with no pants and multiple hooded sweatshirts on watching Evan Almighty. And he was like, what the motherfuck is going on? And since we're talking about callbacks in this show and we're doing callbacks, I got to give you the greatest callback in the history of human interactions. So I told him that I did that just because I felt so sad and cold and alone. That's why I was wearing multiple hoodies. He didn't even really react to it. He just logged that away somewhere. So now this is years later. We're up north. We're working at this ridiculous deck bar and grill together in the summer. He's dating some chick who we find out is just getting railed by everybody, right? And it's one of those things where we went to a music festival, and all of his friends were trying to catch her cheating, which she did throughout the music festival. And it took a lot of evidence to convince him. And once we finally convinced him, because he really liked her, and he went over to that night, he was like, I'm going to go over, talk to her, probably break up with her. I was like, probably. And he goes over there. And so we lived in this little cabin, 2-bedroom cabin, and the only bathroom was in my bedroom. So in the morning, my alarm clock was him just pissing. You're like, oh, so you worked before me today. Cool. That's great news. And so it's the next day, and I hear him in the bathroom, goes to the bathroom, washes his hands, whatever. You hear bathroom noises. And so I'm not really awake, but I'm like, hey, man, how did it go? Did you break up with her? I just hear him from the bathroom go, yeah, I did. And I go, how are you doing? And he comes walking out of the bathroom. He goes, not great. And he has every shirt and hooded sweatshirt he owns on. It doesn't say anything, just walks by, just like he looks like the Michelin Man, like Joey when he goes, could I be wearing any more clothes? Oh shit. I mean,
I just love that he turned his pain into your pain. Like instead of just internalizing what he was dealing with, he had to remind you of what you were dealing with before.
100% years. He did that years.
Yeah, like 3 months it would be funny. Like in 3 months it would be funny, but like years later, that's psycho. Like that's like he saved that. He was like, I'm gonna wait, and then I'm gonna use that against him someday.
Sai, when did you know that you wanted to be a stand-up, and who are like your big influences?
I love this question because I love hearing other comics answer it, because there's so many funny, like,
I read a lot of Nietzsche.
I used to sneak into my parents' basement and listen to their Richard Pryor albums. You did? Because you're 29. They had albums. I grew up, I loved SNL and I loved Adam Sandler. I just was fucking obsessed with Adam Sandler as a kid. And Billy Madison still today we could have a whole conversation about how fucking great I think Adam Sandler is. And I think everybody exists in this world where, one thing's true and therefore another thing isn't. I'm a big multiple things can be true at the same time. Like he's put out some stuff that isn't great, and he's put out some of the greatest, most fun comedies, of my child. A Wedding Singer to this day is fucking
wicked underrated. So underrated.
Holds up as well as anything. And the thing that people forget about Billy Madison, they look at Billy Madison like it's this silly thing. But if you look at where comedy is now, and they had that big fucking music scene. Do you have any more gum? More gum. They had a penguin. They had a culture club dance scene on the stairwell just out of nowhere. So all these things that we take for granted, even with his characters on SNL, where he's literally deconstructing characters as Opera Man, or the costumes, like I'm Spaghetti Spoon, like that stuff. I don't think he gets enough credit for that stuff. But I grew up, I loved SNL. I loved all those movies. And I always wanted to do sketch stuff. So we made shitty, dumb videos as kids. And then when I moved up to the cities,
where are they?
I have no idea. They're in I can tell you one of them was, the only one I remember is, do you remember the Tybo? Billy Blanks' is Tybo?
Yeah.
So we had a friend named Ben, and so we had a reoccurring sketch called Benbo, where he was just a really sexually aggressive teacher of aerobics.
Awesome.
And I don't think it would fly today. And so then I got a little older. I moved up with my sister, and I was like making stupid videos with my oldest nephew up there, and sketches and stuff. And then her husband, my brother-in-law, John, told me about this club in Minneapolis called Acme Comedy Club. And it's one of the best clubs in the country. They do a funniest person in the Twin Cities contest. And I'd also, to go deeper on the influences thing, Tom, we weren't allowed to watch MTV as a kid.
Oh, okay.
You know, we have to kind of like sneak it. My dad, he's not some weird like TV's the devil, but he just thought it was garbage shit.
Right.
Bruce
And
hates
so
MTV. We get it.
he hated it, man. And so I would watch a ton of Nick at Night, Green Acres, Get Smart, you know, Mr. Ed, all that. So I was obsessed with, and a lot of those shows were about an individual, like the Dick Van Dyke Show, the Mary Tyler Moore Show, I Love Lucy. And so as a little kid, I always knew, I was like, oh, I would love to have my own show. I would love to be the star of a show. And so when John first told me about Acme, because I never went to film school, that wasn't even a thing where we grew up, you know, I looked at comedy, I was like, well, maybe I could try that and see what it's like. And maybe that's a path
Right.
into the world that I want to be in. So I started doing it, and I still always kind of hoped it would be a path because I wanted to do more things. But the moment I started doing stand-up, I just fell totally in love with the immediacy of the response. I'm really competitive. So I kind of view it as you versus, like, you guys are here and my goal is to make you laugh. There's a bit of competition there.
Right.
And there's just a bit like the longer you do stand up and the more audiences you're in front of, there's just such a fun aspect to feeling like you're trying to gain control of a room full of people and push them where you want them to go and stuff. So I really fell in love with it along the way. And then when I really started getting into stand up, like, I'm not gonna lie, it was one of the first ones was, I'll give you the first three people that I was obsessed with. It was Dane Cook. And, you know, anybody who, I know there's all sorts of issues and opinions about Dane Cook, but anybody who pretends that some of that material wasn't very good is fucking silly.
Yep.
I think Dane got very famous and kind of became a little bit of a caricature of himself, and, you know, in terms of saying words really weird.
Right.
And, you know, obviously the Louis and all that shit that who cares, but if you can at least recognize that in those early albums there was some pretty impressively written comedy, I think you're lying to yourself a little bit. So I was into him for a while, but and the other, both he and the blue collar comedy people, who I don't think they get enough credit for the rebirth of stand-up in this country, where a lot of people went and saw the blue collar comedy tour and a ton of people became obsessed with Dane Cook. And then a lot of those people were like, well, I wonder what else exists. And then they went and found this comic and that comic. And then they look back and they go, Dane Cook shit's kind of corny, but I love this shit, you know. And it really repopularized, and the original Kings of Comedy get credit for that too, obviously. They all get credit for kind of repopularizing stand-up, just in my dumb opinion. But so it started with kind of Dane Cook. I thought he was covering, and then I became obsessed with David Cross, and it's Chappelle. It's been Chappelle forever, and I know that's a whole nother conversation. But I'd only been doing stand up a little while when, For What It's Worth, his special Live at the Fillmore came out, and I know everybody loves the first one, and I know the little crack baby and all that, like all that stuff is really, really, really great. But For What It's Worth at the Fillmore was and still is like a clinic on how, for me, what I love about stand-up and what is interesting about it and good about it. So I became really obsessed with him. And then, you know, then you get into, now I'm trying to do it as a career, and you meet these people that you have just this insane amount of respect and appreciation for, like Chad Daniels and Tommy Johnigan and Mike Winfield and Segura and all these people that you get to kind of, you know, perform with and be around. And then that takes on a different influence. But that was kind of the path of influence that led to kind of where I wanted to land eventually.
And do you think it's helped all of those guys like stay together and work all their stuff out, as far as, because I mean, almost every comic has a podcast now, right?
Yep.
And if they don't have one, they're usually the second or third player on someone else's podcast on a regular basis. Like, again, that's like the technology kind of keeping these things together, because I mean, it's not like we can turn on Comedy Central anymore and just watch stand up on a loop. Like that doesn't even exist anymore,
Yeah. I think it's cool. Yeah, I think it's cool. It's kind of the gatekeeper aspect where, and it's more than in just podcasts. Pandora has played a huge role in that, where Pandora is algorithm based. So, the more somebody hears your tracks and like it, the more they hear it, the more you fall into the algorithm, the more you build. And that's guys who really, really deserve a ton of success, like Chad and Tommy and Dan Cummins and Roy Wood and all these people who they're just kind of exposed to the world, and the world decides.
Right.
Which so much of comedy and so much of performing in the world of art is up to gatekeepers.
Right.
And I'm not even necessarily taking a hard stand like, dude, no one should be able to say, like, yeah, sometimes gatekeepers are important because I don't want that fucking guy getting through the gate,
Right.
but it's this kind of new time where you can make something, and if you make something, you have a value, and if you have a value, you can do what you want to do. You see guys like Dan and Chad touring in a different way now than they did 5 years ago, and I think that's incredible.
It's really funny. The list you named is pretty much what happens when I play Pandora now, because that's how I discovered you. That's how I discovered Chad. I think I was listening to Nate Bargatze on Pandora.
Yep. Yeah, he's another one. He's another dude who, and he's had a lot of TV appearances and shit like that. But he's a guy that he put shit out there, and people became a giant fan of him. And once they're a fan of you, you have a whole world to be in front of. I mean, you saw even Sam and Mark releasing specials straight to YouTube. It's just a different time, and there's pros and cons of that. But it's if you're good, I think it's kind of probably a pretty cool time in that way.
Yeah, so it was funny because I was listening to his Pandora, and that's how I discovered all of you guys. And then at the time, we weren't doing a podcast. I have a normal job. I own a furniture company. I'm not a comedian. I'm not an actor. I don't make films like Tom or do comedy like you. It's funny because we talked about passion. My passion has always been sports. And then,
oh my gosh, I thought you were going to say couches and chases.
Yeah, no, I sell office furniture, not even. So it's like cubicles and conference
it's
tables.
Bummer furniture. It's furniture that bums people out.
Yeah. So, but the answer you gave Tom it's really interesting, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone answer with so many mainstream names where I 100% believe you. And I think it's actually refreshing, because I feel like every comedian that you talk to, like, they don't want to list the heavy hitters when they talk about influences. They don't want to say SNL. They don't want to say Louis C.K. They don't want to say Dave Chappelle. It's all like, oh, Mitch Hedberg was big for me before he passed, which I'm not shitting on Mitch. I actually like Mitch Hedberg, but it's like a musician coming up, like,
very performative.
Everybody wants to name someone no name as their influencer so that they feel like self-righteous or important. Like, oh, I followed the little guys. I actually, when you said Adam Sandler, I'm like, I fucking love Adam Sandler. And then you say Chappelle, I'm like, oh, I saw Chappelle at Foxwoods last year. I love Chappelle. No one says these names. I mean, Tom, every person we talk to, whether it's an actor, a writer, a comedian, they all want to name like the no names, or like not no names, but like the lower level list, where it's like, I know my shit because I'm a fan of this person. I actually found it refreshing that he was just like, yeah, I fucking like the big guys.
Like what you like. You like what you like. There's an audience for every person. There's a lid for every pot.
Well, and I think what people, it's weird because it's hard to get drawn into something by an obscure aspect of it, right? Or a smaller aspect of it. So I think what happens a lot is people get drawn in by something big and flashy, a Sandler, a whatever, and then they get in, and I think it's the shit that they like. Then they realize, like, oh, I love Hedberg. I truly love Hedberg, and that's to them, probably more identifiable. Like, they want it. Hedberg probably is the thing that drives them, but they're probably not being honest about the origin. you know, because there are comedians that I can list along the way here that fucking kill me, that I think are incredible. And people go, well, who's, you know, and you're right. It's kind of that thirsty shit where you're like, look at how unique I am. But you know, I think that's why people do it, you know,
No,
because
you're definitely
they
right,
get
though.
into it and they don't want to admit that it was that Jeff Foxworthy's joke about, dude, Jeff Foxworthy has his joke. I remember, and I've been in stand up for a while, right? So I can appreciate Jeff Foxworthy. You know, Jeff Foxworthy is the reason people who grew up in the town I grew up in even care that comedy exists. So when those people come and pay for a ticket at a show that I'm at, it's in part probably because they drove on family trips and listened to Jeff Foxworthy tapes. But he has this joke. God, I was listening to, like, driving in my car, been doing stand up for a while, and he comes on Sirius and he's doing a list of if you know, there's that shit. And one of them was so weird and so unique and odd. He goes, if your checks have pictures of dogs fighting on them, you might be a redneck. And I like almost had a fucking heart attack. I was like, holy shit. That's because I love hillbilly culture. I love hick shit. But that was one of those moments where I was like, well, I guess I now have to tell people I think Jeff Foxworthy is fucking hilarious, because that's a better joke than I have on any of my shit.
I disagree. I the joke that you made about was it the 9-year-old hillbilly kid that they put on the hood of the car to watch the fight, and then you said,
Oh
oh,
yeah, the
it's 2
fucking brawl.
yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's 2 a.m. wherever, he's not going to college, and then you said something like, we'll just wait, we'll wait for like the organs, or you made like a donor reference about him, didn't you?
Yeah, it was really fucking dark.
Fuck,
Yeah.
that was smart, but that was super smart, and everyone, it was like a joke grenade because the audience didn't react initially, and then they played it back in their head, and then it started like a slow wave of like laughter and then you said to them, oh yeah, welcome to the show, like, because people got how funny that fucking was.
That was a wild experience tape. So that was for This Is Not Happening, which is a storyteller show that Ari Shafir used to host. And um, when I was started stand up in Minnesota, it was just like, go up and make people like you and be funny. And that was my whole career. It was just like, be you, be funny, and make people like you, and make people think, like, take what you think is funny and just bring people across the line so they're standing by you laughing.
Right.
And when I got to LA after doing Montreal, you know, I think I definitely had, especially at that time when I was still healthy, I had a certain look to me that probably didn't match who I necessarily was, where I was like kind of bigger and put together and a little kind of like a frat bro look
Okay.
to
Yep.
me.
Not to put you down,
And
but yeah.
no, that's the look. And I mean, the truth is, you know, I lived at home during college. I don't drink. I despise frats. I just, you know, I do like sports, I guess, and I'm really competitive, but that didn't match my personality at all. And when I got to LA, you know, that was the nerd counterculture stuff had been going for a while, and like the rise um, of all that stuff. And so there was kind of if you're a jock bro, you're the worst.
Right.
And so right at the height of my career, like, or the start of the height of my career, I've gotten a couple festivals. I did New Faces. I'm going to do Conan, all that stuff. I came out to LA and it was horrible because everybody would look at me and treat me in a very specific way. I remember I finally got up on a show at the West Side Theater, and I had a couple comics who I was friends with.
Nice muscles,
They came up-
asshole.
Well, they came up after me and they're like, that was fucking awesome. Dude, that joke, where did that? And then I realized these guys never even watched me, you know? And it's just, and LA is a tough town for stand up anyway. But so all that's going on, and I'm going to do this show with a ton of comics I respect. Bert Kreischer is there. You know, he was one of the stories before me, I think. And it is in like this cool strip club, and the crowd is very specific. And I walked up there and I felt that vibe, and I wish I could have done that. That story is a true story. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. There's a lot of great lines in it, and I wish I could have landed it better for that taping, because it didn't come off the way it normally comes off, because just the vibe in LA was very, very, very weird. It
Because
was
they all thought that
very,
you like went to Penn State on a lacrosse scholarship.
They thought they were going to
Yeah.
get bullied when he walked up on stage.
yeah, I always said I look like if Hitler had a football team, he wouldn't let me play because he'd want to save me for the lacrosse team, right? That's what the men in our family, these big Swedish, which, by the way, that's some unfair shit that Hitler with his disgusting ass brown fucking hair and turd stash is like, a blonde, the blue, fuck you, leave my Swedish people out of it. We have fucking nothing to do with. I'm sorry I was born with cheekbones, you piece of shit. But yeah, it was, and I think in LA there's a ton of actors who are trying anything they can to get famous. So the amount of actors that try stand up. So I'm sure I just look like a fucking actor trying to try stand up. And I almost got to the point I was like, I should just start bringing up fucking photographs of, young Cy on stage. Like, do you see this bowl cut? Do you think this is a kid that fucking existed with it's a crooked bowl cut because I had to go to my dad's barber. Do you think this guy was fucking running cocky the last 16 years?
I mean, it's
Well,
it's tough to smoke and cut hair. I mean, come on, Cy.
You showed them though you had a self-induced autoimmune disorder to get the muscles gone. That way you could be funnier now. Now you're ready, so that when you recover, you're gonna go on the road. No one's gonna judge you by having a higher bench press. Now they're gonna actually take you seriously as a comedian.
Yeah, they're like, look at that. Like I said, I look like if Ernest had a sick kid right now. Ernest from the Ernest movies. I'll tell you the one thing that I was like, one of the rudest LA, like, you're not in your comfort zone anymore, and you don't get to just be you anymore. So I was auditioning for Adam Devine's house party, and it was at that same place, the West Side Theater. It's a packed out room, and there's a dude from Comedy Central who means the world to me. You remember I was saying there's two moments that kind of shifted my career?
Yeah.
He's responsible for the other one. His name's Ryan Moran. He was always loved my stuff and was a really great advocate. And so he's like he's part of putting on this showcase together, bunch of comics. And I'm like one of the last ones to go. And back at my open mic in Minneapolis, it was like 200-300 people every Monday. And I just did whatever the fuck I wanted. I was like, tonight I think I'm going to pretend to be Chris Angel and, do a bad card trick and then dry hump a guy in the third row until he threatens to beat the fuck out of me. That's a real story, by the way. Well, my buddy Joel, who I was telling you about, was in back on the God mic, the speaker. And every time I would say my name was Chris Angel, he would just whisper into the mic, Chris Angel.
Awesome.
Just every time. So that's what I'm used to. And I'm the greatest owner in the world at that club is just like, once he hires you, just go be funny. I trust you. I don't care if you fail. I don't care if it's weird. Do the thing that you think is funny. So I'm at this showcase, and there's a guy before me that's playing guitar, and he's got a neck harmonica. One of those fucking, the metal things that hangs around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got one of those, and he comes off stage, and I'm next, and I'm like, hey man, can I borrow that neck harmonica? And so he's like, what? I was like, yeah, I've got a really funny idea. Please.
That's a very personal request, isn't it?
Yeah,
No one talks to Blues Traveler this way.
And he's like, I guess. So he gives me the neck harmonica. And the host goes out and introduced me. And I walk out on stage with the neck harmonica on, and I just kind of look around, and I just go, big fucking Comedy Central showcase, and they book back-to-back neck harmonica comics.
Oh my God.
And then I throw like a fake tantrum about how much bullshit it is. Like, how am I supposed to perform? And to me, I'm like, this is what I truly think is funny. And it bombed on a level that is I didn't get the show. I didn't
I
get
would
to
have
this point where
I
they're
would
like,
have pissed my pants if I was in that audience.
it did not get received well, and that was one of the things that really fucked me up on LA, where I was like, oh, I can't, and I don't think it was true, but I just got in my own way where it's like, oh, I can't be myself out here. I can't do what I want to do. I can't exist the way I want to exist in Los Angeles. But yeah, to me, I was walking out on stage. Rarely has there been a man more confident that has failed so miserably.
Yeah, but are there ever times like that where you walk off afterwards and you go, fuck them, that's funny?
Yeah, yeah. So
You
after
can't
it was a
expect the
really-
audience to be as smart as you all the time or have the same sense of humor, obviously.
I have one of my best friends in the whole world. His name is Brooks Robinson. Incredible comic, very different from me. Everything that everybody thinks when they look at me, he's the opposite. Hipstery, dark, cool, intelligent,
handsome,
artistic, sexy,
Not
sex
Scandinavian.
machine,
Yeah.
not Scandinavian, all those things. Very, very different, just like cool and artsy.
Yeah.
And he and I became just such close friends that, and it was pretty early on in my career that when somebody would tell me, you'd be like, hey, you shouldn't be doing jokes like that, or hey, that wasn't funny, you shouldn't do that. He was always there he would tell me when something, he was like, hey, that's fucking whack, dude, don't do that shit, but he was always there as kind of like a meter for me he was one of the few people I trusted because he had such a high standard. And because of that, I did have that pretty much my whole career into this day. I don't really give a fuck what other people think, but I think in terms of LA, it wasn't I failed, I'm not funny. I mean, I fucking miserably bombed an Arsenio Hall showcase. Like, if there was a way that somebody could set a club on fire with a comedian inside of it, everyone in that room that night would have been like, him, it's the tall one, let's burn him to death inside the Improv. But it was more of a recognition of kind of a more defeatist, where, oh, this isn't a place. I can do what I think is funny, I can be who I think is funny, but this isn't a place where I'm going to get to do that all the time. There'd be moments at shows where I'd do some, like, I've been working on this joke for 10 years about a gator trial, like a gator who got, like, some guy tried to basically, or some woman tried to frame an alligator for murdering her wife or her husband in Florida. And it's this big, like, theatrical fucking piece where I'm playing a lawyer and a gator that's on trial and a sheriff and all this shit. And I've been doing that for fucking a decade. And every once in a while, I'd get real comfortable in a room and do something weird like that. And then somebody I really liked or respected would go, that was fucking wild, man. That was great. But those moments were few and far in between out there. Those moments are a lot easier to get in Cincinnati, Madison, Minneapolis, Seattle, places like that.
So, I mean, you have to gauge every single personality every single time you step on stage.
I don't know. I'm not smart enough to do that. I think.
Well, I mean, if the room is cold, you got to go in a different direction, right?
I assume most comedians are this way. Well, I had another mentor, Mike Brody, who I love a lot, who taught me how to do shit rooms. He's like, this is a fucking VFW in Rochester. Get through this show. Let's make our money. Like, and I kind of took that as a challenge to, like, how am I going to make these people on board with the shit I want to do?
Right.
So I worked really, really hard at that. And you still can't get everything you want. It's just, I could never crack LA. I could get all small town, all that shit. But I think most comedians, I would guess, I don't want to speak for anyone, but have kind of a way of approaching stuff where early on in the set, you have, oh, that joke went this way, so I'm going to throw this one out and see how people respond, and just kind of gauge the, I don't want to say education, but the nuance of the crowd. Let's go with nuance. And if are they going to be like, hey, tell us about your cock again? Or can you do the stuff that you think is great? And the cool thing is, as your career goes on, for most people, less and less in front of the show us your cock jokes crowd.
Right. Which is also a little more nuanced.
Smidge.
Yeah.
I go, show, I want people like, show us your penis type jokes. I don't want like blue, it's not, call it a penis. It's a penis.
So when was your last on stage show?
Ooh. Right before the pandemic, Chad and I did a live show for our podcast, and that was the last time I performed. So that was March of fucking 2020. So we're coming up on 2 full years.
Yeah. So we talked about it earlier before you came on, but the Middle of Somewhere podcast with Cy Amundson,
Whoever
Cy,
you want me to be, Daddy.
Cy and Chad
Whoever
Daniels.
you can dress me however you want, Robbie, baby.
Chad is almost as funny as Cy. He probably hates
that motherfucker is.
Chad's a funny motherfucker. Chad's a funny motherfucker.
Listen to me, Chad, and it's happening. He's got big crowds to draw. This dude, and I'm not gonna say this to him. He doesn't need this credit from me.
Fuck him, yeah.
This dude is. You talk about Bill Burr. This dude is Bill Burr. This dude.
He's like Michael Scott with Pam. I'd never say this to her face.
Yeah, he puts together hours that are unmatched. There is not a touring comedian in this country, that matches what he does. And not only like his albums are great, he's one of those guys whose albums are great. And then you get him in a club, and it's not just better in a club. It is, I've never seen someone do to a room what he does to a room. There's a couple comics that can get close. Jonigan used to crush a room. Mike Winfield, man, when Mike and I first met, Mike Winfield, we were all in this contest together at the Gilda Fest, the Gilda Laugh Fest up in Michigan. And Mike, there's like 10 or 12, 8, 10, 12, like really established TV credit level comedians vying for this money. And he puts on his first set, and we're all like,
it's over.
So he's gonna win. Just adults who give a fuck. But yeah, no, Chad's it's pretty hard to find anybody who matches what that dude does. He's fucking incredible.
So, and I swear to you, Tom knows, him and I have talked about comedians before. I don't know if I'm right in saying this, Tom. I think you're into comedy as much as I am, but you're probably a little bit more old school. Like, you love the Cosby stuff. I mean, not that I don't. Like, I love Jerky Boys. That's the stuff that got me into comedy when I was really young.
Tom, which Cosby stuff, just to be sure what he's talking about here?
The stuff. So I'm a big fan of his Jello pudding. He has a flavor. It's called Sleepy Time pudding. Have you ever had it?
Okay.
You may have and not even known about it, but it is delicious.
Sure hope not.
Coke is it.
Okay.
So anyways, and I swear I'm not just copying what you're saying. I'm not trying to pander to you. Some of my favorite comedians are Jonigan, Daniels, and you. And part of me, a while ago, I stopped like really focusing on the big names, and I'm not trying to insult any of you by saying you're not big names, because I mean, hell, you're not selling cubicles like me on Monday. But
come on, you sell office chairs. Come on,
I
man.
do. Listen,
the way we talk about ourselves is the way we view ourselves.
I'm very happy.
You ever sold one of those things a water cooler sits on? Come on.
I'm very content.
Rob puts asses in the seats.
Literally.
Yeah, he does.
No, but I like years ago, like Gervais is one of my favorite. Ricky Gervais is one of my favorite, but like not that long ago, maybe 2 years ago, I stopped scrolling for like.
I agree. I love condescending atheism. It's like, and my comedic likes, it's at the top of the list. So keep going.
Sounds so genuine when he says.
Why am I taking a shot at Ricky Gervais? I have zero opinion on him whatsoever.
I just listen when I watch his stand up, I laugh my ass off. Same as yours, same as Jonigan. So, but I used to I'd try to find stand-up specials online, whether, older stuff that I like, David Spade, even like Kevin James stuff that when I was in high school, I was like,
Kevin James is special. Find a fucking better bit than him on a jet ski.
It's one of my favorite. No, that and did you ever see, what was the one? He was a big guy. I think he passed away, about him going skiing. Tequila makes him ski. Why can't I think of the name of the comedian? Fuck, I'll think of it.
Really overweight guy?
Yes, very overweight.
John Panette.
John Panette, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
That one bit, about I don't drink tequila anymore because tequila makes me ski. But yeah, Kevin James on a jet ski. But when my wife really got me into Pandora, I realized like I like a lot of these new comedians, and I'm not hearing the same old jokes that I used to listen to, because for years I would just watch the same stand-up specials that I liked when I was in high school. And I admittedly was a fan of Dane Cook right before college. He blew up on Comedy Central, and I was definitely into it. But it's funny because the names you keep mentioning, Cummins, Jonigan, Chad, yourself, Segura, Bert,
Bargatze,
I discovered all of those names. Bargatze I discovered on Netflix. Every other name I discovered on Pandora. And you were saying like the gatekeeper thing, like they can be good and bad. Well, if it wasn't for Pandora, I might not have found out about all of these comedians. I'm sure eventually I would have heard of some of them, but it's just really funny because every time you spit a name out, I'm like, motherfucker, that's a guy that I like. So at least I know, at least I know I'm on the right track in terms of getting size approval for who I think is funny. I know he's not a big fan of me, but yeah.
Yeah, you certainly don't have my approval, but yeah, Pandora, we're really lucky with Pandora. Pandora's played a big role for a lot of comics. Our, Chad and I's label, 800-Pound Gorilla, has done a really, really great job. I remember when I was going there, I had this idea, like, I hope these guys can take what I've done in the past and the new stuff and kind of elevate it. And they did that and more. There's some really great people out there doing really great things for comics, for sure.
Well, listen, we've kept you on for far too long as it is. I think when I originally begged you to come on here, I asked for 20 to 30 minutes, and you've given us far more than that and put up with me.
Correct. Very correct.
Yeah. Thanks. Genuinely, all the best moving forward. I really hope that things start to improve and, keep going in the direction that you're hoping that they are. I'm a big fan of your comedy. Anyone that's listening, the two listeners that we do have, definitely check out Si's stuff, and, check out the Middle of Somewhere podcast with him and Chad Daniels. Si, I genuinely sorry for stepping on jokes. Sorry for being an asshat. Maybe I got a little bit too excited.
I'm just being funny.
Yeah.
Stop.
No, I know you are.
This is what he does, Tom. Does he apologize a lot?
Yeah, he backpedals. It's a childhood thing.
I absolutely
I love it.
We're working through
It
it.
would be good. Maybe it's time for me to turn into a bully, because this feels like a strong bully situation.
You feel the power?
I feel like
Soak in that power.
It's almost sexual, and I get it. I really
I'm trying to be a nice
like
guy because I'm usually not one, but you're really pushing me here, Si.
Well, what are you gonna do? Make fun of a guy with a disease?
Oh,
Come on, come tear me down. You're gonna take down a guy who had to step away from his dreams? Is that your game?
I'm gonna make a fortune. I'm gonna make a fortune in office furniture. I'm gonna go back in time and kick the shit out of you in LA before you had the disease. How's that?
Well, that guy's not getting beaten up by a dude in a Patriots hat. So.
Oh, I know.
Friends,
yeah, no one from Boston could ever fight.
Friends, this has been really nice. Thank you guys.
No,
for
honestly,
having me.
I am a huge fan, Si. I appreciate you coming on. I'll let Tom do his goodbye, but thank you. I've been begging you for a while, and sorry that I was a douche, but you're very funny. I hope to be seeing more of you on the stage soon.
No,
Thanks,
this was most podcasts are a bummer to be a guest on, and this was not. So thank you guys very much for having me, and I'm glad it finally worked out. And goodbye.
Goodbye.
See you, Si.
Goodbye.
We sincerely hope you enjoyed the program. Please check us out where all podcasts are sold, and check out our YouTube channel as well. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. If you don't like the show, go fuck yourself.
Ra-da-da-da-doo.